Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology.
Welcome, everyone, to the first ever live broadcast of the Bit Tech Talk podcast, a.k.a. the Blacks in Technology podcast. This is the Parents Edition. I'm your host for this evening, Greg Greenlee, along with my co-host, Ayuri Selassie. And in case this is your first time listening, I am the founder of the Blacks in Technology organization. I also work as a systems engineer with over 12 years of experience in the IT field. You can check out Blacks in Technology by visiting www.blacksintechnology.net. But more importantly than just checking it out, join and become a member. Be engaged. It's a community of Black techs and engineers that is fast approaching 1,100 members nationwide and even some members from overseas. So definitely join, engage in the community. There's a lot of great technology talk there. But a little bit of background on us. Blacks in Technology was founded almost 4 years ago as an idea to bring a sense of community to Black engineers and techs and people looking to learn, people looking to get into the career field so we can share knowledge about the world of technology. So what we want people in the community to do is build and learn from each other because we have experts across all domains of technology. We have mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers, people just getting into technology. But we're looking for engagement from everyone, no matter what your skill level or expertise is, because this is about building community. And I want to reiterate that we're building a community. We're building creators and innovators, and we're doing this, and we're controlling our own image as techs and engineers. So our main goal for Blacks in Technology is to stop the divide, and we're accomplishing that by focusing on three things, which is increasing visibility, increasing participation, changing perceptions of Blacks in the technology field. So again, our URL is blacksintechnology.net. We also have a technology blog, Bit Digest, and that's www.bitdigest.net. It's a technology blog with the articles written by African-American techs and engineers. You can follow us on Twitter. That's at Black in Technology. That's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. And at Bit Tech Digest, BITTECHDIGEST. We also have a LinkedIn group under Blacks in Technology and a Facebook group, or a Facebook page, I should say, facebook.com/Blacks in Technology. So this is officially our 47th episode of the Bit Tech Talks. But this is our first live podcast, and we're counting down to our 50th podcast. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to introduce our incredible co-host, fellow techie extraordinaire, Ayuri Selassie, to tell us a little bit about herself in the Road to 50 campaign. So, Ayuri, thanks. And go ahead and tell the people about this Road to 50 campaign.
All right. Thank you, Greg. So in celebration of our 3-year anniversary, which we've really kicked off here in December, Bit Tech Talk has begun our countdown to our 50th podcast. And so this is the second in our series of 5, where we'll be doing a deep dive into the topics of perception, participation, and visibility of African Americans in technology. And today's topic is focusing on the topic of participation, and we're specifically asking questions to parents of African American youth. How do you raise a coder? So with that, I'd like to introduce our panel for the day. We have 4 incredible parents who are really dedicated and also really doing a wonderful job of raising their kids in technology. So I'm going to go through each one and allow them some time to introduce themselves. So starting with Amanda and Scott Butterfield. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Okay, so I'm Scott. And we have 3 kids, Amanda and I, Spencer, Elijah, and Charmian. Our oldest, Spencer, is a freshman at UC Santa Cruz in computer science game design.
Nice.
And Amanda, you want to?
Yes, our second oldest son is Elijah.
Hello.
He's 16. He's a senior in high school. And he also is heavily into tech and will be following his brother to UC Santa Cruz, majoring in computer science. And we have a daughter who is 10, who's also a coder. She began coding when she was 8, and she has made several apps, and she's also has done things in Maya 3D and Blender. And we are also homeschoolers. We're in our 13th year of homeschooling.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Scott. And Elijah. How old are you, Elijah?
I'm 16.
Well, welcome to the show. We're really excited to hear what you have to say about your parents' tactics. You can let us know how well they work for you. Okay, and so Wilda Taylor. Wilda is also a homeschooling mom. How about you share a little bit about yourself, Wilda, and your story?
Well, I have one daughter. She's 14. Her name is Rebecca. She is now a freshman at California Virtual Academies at San Joaquin, their high school. That's the program that we've used since first grade, so she's never set foot in public school. She's always been a curious child, tearing up things, and I've kind of fostered that curiosity. I realized that she was interested in tech when earlier this year she made an animated video as a birthday present for me. And since then, I've been looking for ways to get her involved, and it's just kind of gone from there.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. So welcome, everyone, to the show. A little bit later, hopefully, we'll be joined by Kai Dupuy, who's also a parent, and he's a speaker, educator, and advocate for diversity in STEM. So he'll be joining us shortly. So
I also want to add that Kai Dupuy, I just want to add one thing or two things, actually. Kai Dupuy actually blogs for his site called Where Are Blacks in Technology? So he does blogging there, and he's also a developer. So he is a software developer. And for people that are listening, use the hashtag BitTechTalk, BITTECHTALK, if you have any questions for us or the parents.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we are. We will be checking the Twitter hashtag if you have questions. All right, so let's just jump right in there. So thank you all for sharing about yourself. I'm curious about why you have decided to get your child in tech. Was it because they showed their own interest, or did anyone have any specific reason that they wanted to specifically get their kids involved in tech?
Well, for me, I think it was really my interest in tech. I've been building computers since, really they were available for people to build in the early 80s. There were some in the 70s, but I got started in the 80s, and so I was really interested, and it just seemed natural, and clearly it's the future, so we just really made everything tech available to our kids, as soon as they were able to do it. We just made sure it was in their hands.
That's great. And how about you, Wilda?
Well, Rebecca's been in front of a computer since she was a few weeks old because during my maternity leave, my company kept calling me to fix reports and things. So I had her in one arm and just kind of fixing end-of-the-month reports with the other. So she's always been in and around computers, and most of my friends are into computers, so she's just always been around it.
Okay, that's great. I really identify with both of your stories as parents because my daughter is also being homeschooled. I was homeschooled, and so I think I have a bit of an unorthodox approach, and so I'm excited to be on the call with other unorthodox folks. But when Kai gets on, he and Greg can do their powwow with the traditional education.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I actually, my son is. I have two younger sons. Well, one is 1 year old, and the other is 4. And yesterday, I actually just introduced him to the 4-year-old. That is, I have just introduced him to the mouse, and I introduced him to Linux. So what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to start him off in Linux, and hopefully, that'll materialize into him being a coder later on. So,
so you're actually homeschooling, right?
No, he's actually in Montessori. So I'm not doing homeschooling, but I'm definitely, I seen what his interest was when he, because I have a 4 monitor, 3 or 4 computer setup here at home, and he's just always curious. He's always jumping in my office chair, trying to see what I'm doing, and he actually likes this educational show called Sprout, and he wanted to get online and go to sproutonline.com, and so I showed him how to start up the computer, how to click on the icons, how to use the mouse, and actually how to navigate and get to the website that he wanted to get to. So small steps, and hopefully next month I'll introduce him to command line. No, I'm just kidding. That's too soon. But just small steps and getting him acclimated to what the computer can do and what it's there for, and he's already taken to it. So he's begging for it every time I come home.
Great.
So most kids are inspired by social careers such as sports, music. How does tech stand up to the images, in pop culture, to inspire and motivate kids in the areas of STEM? And I'll direct this question to Wilda first.
In pop culture, really nothing. There's a whole bunch of other things that are glorified and idolized, and STEM isn't one of them, which is unfortunate because what's being glorified and idolized is, in my opinion, garbage. So, I mean, it's going to take the parent to kind of steer the child that way, unless the child is constantly around it.
Definitely. Well, how about you, Amanda?
I'm right there with Wilda. I mean, even before we had kids, we discussed that we would homeschool them. And so, like Rebecca, our kids have never been in school except that they have taken classes at the local community college, but they've never, stepped foot in an elementary, junior high, or high school. We made a real concentrated effort as to what we put into. I'm sorry?
Except to teach.
Except to teach. Yes, they have taught. They have taught in schools.
Gotcha.
We made a concentrated effort. What we put into our kids' heads, they didn't grow up with, regular television. It was PBS. We made sure, we screened what they watched. Really what goes into their brains. We wanted to make sure that it was something positive. As far as, the tech, it's just something that they've always grown up with. If they wanted a computer, they had to build a computer. And Scott could talk more about that because he was really on that with them from a very young age. And, instead of playing video games, why not build a video game? And so they've done that also from a very young age. And Elijah can, talk to that about having, taking classes at the community college, in tech and what it was.
Yeah, Elijah, actually I'm really interested to hear from you on this. So how do you feel this, like the whole regular sort of pop culture and just the general where society's going, especially from a standpoint of being an African American, and sort of this tech world that you're in, like, how do you balance those two? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, in pop culture, I can definitely say that there isn't too much idolization of nerdy people or people interested in technology fields, and normally the traditional occupations. And a lot of more interested in consuming media, whether it's video games or movies or apps, instead of creating them. And as an African American, not just from the people I've met, not just people my age, but in the workforce, I see that mostly dominated by white men. So I believe that somehow being able to introduce more technology-based education at a younger age would definitely steer the way the society's going.
Elijah, just real quick, how much did, and I see that it influenced, but give us a little bit of your mindset when you were growing up as a kid coming up in a household whose parents are in the STEM field. How did that motivate you or affect you? Because here, Blacks in Technology, we definitely are advocates of increasing visibility, especially among African Americans that are in the technology field. So, how did having parents in the technology field, or learning technology and building technology around you, how much did that influence you, or how did it influence you?
I would say it influenced me quite a bit. Just being around my dad, working on computers and building computers, just asking him, how does this work and what does this do? Then he would explain that, and from there I could expand my knowledge from the internet or experimenting myself. And also from community college classes, be able to enroll at such a young age definitely increased my exposure to technology fields like 3D modeling or video game design, animation, and coding, and things like that.
Excellent.
That's awesome. I definitely identify with that, because when I was younger, my mom, she didn't know a bunch of this technology stuff. She just knew that she wanted us to be involved in it. And so she gave me a programming book. We had a computer, and she just said, go figure it out. But over time, I found different things online, and I just sort of kept tinkering with things. And I was doing things similar to you guys, where, I was in 3D Studio Max. I was learning Lightwave. I was doing web development, and I was getting paid for it. And I was like, hey, this works. So I want to ask another question. It's just jumping straight to the point around this topic of makers, creators, and builder kids. How do you raise your kids to, make them see the value in this creation rather than being a consumer? Let's start with Scott on that one. How about it?
Well, I always believe that necessity was the mother of invention. And, when you don't have a lot of resources, when we don't, we're just an average middle-class family, you have to figure out ways to do it. So, so we just build a lot of stuff. We make it. And we're also very curious. So we're always taking things apart and, figuring out how to repair things, just really trying to instill in the kids an appreciation for quality, and realizing that, this stuff was made by people and you're a person, so why can't you do it? And so there's nothing that they ever believe that they couldn't do. And it's because of that they can fly, basically.
So there's nothing that they couldn't do. I mean, do you believe that your children are special in that, or do you think that applies to every child?
No, I think it applies to every child. I think that, I do think that, we're lucky we have some pretty bright kids, but I really believe that, honestly, we just underestimate what kids can do. Really, it's more motivation. If you can get a kid to want to do it, he'll do it. They can do all kinds of things. They can sit still and watch, play a video game for hours. Why couldn't they also study for hours? It really, I think, it has to do with what they're interested in. So if you make it interesting to them and kind of teach them why it's important, then, they get it, and then they will do it, themselves. So, it's really just a matter of it's sort of this incremental process that started when they were little. So it's a little harder to take someone, like it'd be hard for us, I think, to produce the same kind of results with kids that we just got today who had already gotten into other habits. So, but because they've been formed in this way for so long, they're ready to go with, the program. So, and that's why I think it's so important. We homeschool, and we homeschooled from the very beginning, and so did Wilda. And, it just makes a huge difference, because an awful lot of what kids learn, they get from other kids, peer pressure and the socialization, or like I like to say, the anti-socialization that they get at school, because that's one of the first questions anyone ever asks about homeschooling. Well, what about socialization? And, honestly, especially for African-American kids, our kids have never been called the N-word. They aren't expected to fail. Nobody told them they're not going to be a success. They've always been told they were going to be a success. And that's what kids need. So I think it's probably especially important to nurture kids who are already have, a world that expects them to, this, you were talking about perception and visibility and inclusion. We already know the world doesn't want to include. They don't want to perceive. They want African Americans to be what they believe they already are. So we didn't want to have that happen to our kids. So that's really why we homeschooled, and it goes right to the question that you were asking about, how we, I forgot what the question was, how we got them to be the way they are.
So thank you, Scott. That's great. And I want to touch bases with Wilda on that same topic, because you're a single mother. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
I have raised her by myself since she was 3 months old.
Oh, yeah. So that is a huge task, right? And how did you balance that? Being a single mother, but then also sort of raising her to be this builder and homeschooling?
Well, kind of like Scott and Amanda, we lived in an area where the schools weren't that great. I'm an older parent, and looking at all the schools closest to us, 42% of the kids' parents never finished high school. And these are parents that are younger than me. That's not conducive to her learning and being the best that she can be. So it was more out of necessity. I was fortunate enough to have and still have a job to where I can either work from home or have flexible hours. And, because of that, like them, we had to build, create, and make things. And I'm a creator, I'm a crafter, so she's always been around people making things. So it's just, what she's used to. She doesn't think, it's out of the ordinary to see mom sit and make a sweater, or for her to go in there and, make a video or make a bracelet for a birthday present for me.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that point about that DIY, that do-it-yourself type of culture that you can raise your children in, because, my mom, she sewed. So she taught us how to sew when we were teenagers, and we were getting into fashion and stuff like that. But we couldn't afford really nice clothes, so we would make it. And so I think that there's this, when we get to sort of some of the gender-specific roles of girls versus boys, and people say that girls aren't raised to be engineers. But there are all sorts of things around in the making culture that is very much engineering and that is very much sort of attuned to even to the traditional role of female sort of gender role, such as sewing, for example. So I think that's great that you could take that area and then apply it, to your daughter and really instill those principles in her to be a maker.
Yeah, I mean, it's what she's around.
Yeah, and I think that's important as well. I know growing up, my father, he was more of a hands-on type guy. He was more like the jack of all trades, the type of person that could, take apart a car, rebuild it, or
sounds like my dad.
If he had some type of electrical problem or you need some plumbing done, the type to get under there, get his hands dirty, and I think that's what seeing that type of thing from him is kind of what inspired me. Just at an early age, just taking apart just anything, just to see what the insides look like. Of course, I got scolded, like, hey, what are you doing? I just bought that. It cost this amount of money. But just seeing him do those type of things and working, and then me taking that image and saying, hey, I want to be curious too. I think that goes a long way, especially with kids who are always looking to mimic, almost everything that, they see their parents doing.
And can I say just briefly that I think that there's been some changes in our culture overall. So back in the day, people did make more. People were expected to make. It was sort of normal. And then we really went into this sort of commodified kind of cultural existence where, consumerism just became so rampant and people really forgot that these things are made. But there are still people who really understand that concept. I mean, Steve Jobs was certainly a person who knew. There was a comment out there by Miles Bowie, and he said, Steve Jobs said the same thing. Everything was made by people that were no smarter than you. And that's a powerful statement. So I really applaud that.
Excellent. So I have a question, and this is more like you all giving some advice to the parents out there that might be seeking, advice on how to get support. So what special support do parents need to be prepared to offer their children to encourage them in STEM? And I'll direct this at Scott first.
Well, parents need to be involved. They really have to take charge of their kids' education. The old adage, garbage in, garbage out, right? I mean, it applies to our kids. And, just if you think that they're, watching the wrong stuff or spending the wrong time with the wrong people, too much time with the wrong people, try to give them something that you would rather them do, and just point them in the right direction. Just keep on doing it. And I think that's the biggest thing, is for parents to be involved.
Excellent. What about you? What's your take on this, on it, Wilda?
Yeah, you really have to be involved. You just do. You can't abdicate your role as a parent to anybody. You've got to take the time and make the time to be involved. Know what your kid's watching. Know what your kid is doing on the internet. Even if you can't say that you don't know, just take the time to learn it with them. Ask them to show you how to do this. With my daughter learning coding right now, I'm being forced to step up my game and learn Ruby and Python in order to keep up with her to answer her questions. You got to be involved.
Yeah, that's powerful. I have a comment from the Twitterverse from Trey Giles, and he says he's a 21-year-old software engineer at Morehouse. He was not homeschooled, and he's been coding for over a decade. His parents aren't in STEM, and he believes that the key to retention is fun. So I want to just jump over to you, Elijah, on that. Do you agree with that? Is it about the fun in technology? Talk about that.
Well, I do agree that fun does play a large portion in it. A lot of my first exposure to technology that field was in video game design, and it still is. Building video game levels, making your own characters, and then importing them into your favorite games and playing as them, and having other people that do it with you, and they can play along with their characters. And the fun is basically built right into the game. So that's also a lot. And from teaching standpoint, I've noticed that the fun does play a large part in the classroom when kids tend to get bored quite quickly. And a lot of these new teaching methods really use a lot of fun, like using a game engine called Kodu, Microsoft. They basically put fun at the forefront and build the curriculum that you can use around that. I find that fun is a large factor in introducing kids into this STEM field.
Yeah, I know. I had a lot of fun when I first. I used to play MUDs back in the day. This is way back when people were using dial-ups. Elijah, you won't remember this part, but we had
remember dial-up.
Modems, and they would. The modems were like huge bricks. It was like the size of a book, and it would sit on top of the computer and plug into the wall. And you couldn't make phone calls when you were on there. But I would program these MUDs and these mushes, which were basically MMORPGs for back in the day. So World of Warcraft used to be played from a command line, and it was programmed by individual people. And that was super fun. And I loved it. I also loved playing Dungeons and Dragons. And so I think it's just for parents out there who maybe you're not really heavily involved in STEM, but if you know what your kids like, and if you can go out and ask questions to people who are in STEM, or even asking questions of your kids to find out a little bit more about what they're doing, and if it's related to technology, helping them to just sort of discover a little bit more details in that, and encouraging them to be involved in the making process. Kids have a really amazing way, I think, of finding their way on their own, as long as they have people behind them saying, just keep doing it, just keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as the fun goes, of course, our kids love to play video games, and one of the first things that they did when they started to make them was they took a class at the community college in video game design, and it was using a 3D engine called Unreal, and then making characters in Autodesk Maya and then importing them into that. And it's a really technically involved process, and then getting it up on the network and the whole class could play, everybody playing against each other with their characters. And of course my kids were the only kids who were really young. They were like 10 and 12, but they were able to do it as well, or actually better. Their work was better than anyone else in the class. And I attribute that to just the fact that they had been taking this sort of thing seriously from a very young age. And a lot of the kids today are just so blasé, like, oh, you're going to make me learn. It's like, well, we do it because we want to learn. But the key thing that I wanted to say is that after a couple of semesters of that, they came to me and they said, Daddy, making video games is way more fun than playing them. And, it's really true. I mean,
Wow.
It's so much fun. There's so much satisfaction in making something and then it being usable and other people being able to use it. So it's a skill that, you can be paid for, So, it's a rewarding thing. So I think the young man from Morehouse, is right on the money. It has to be fun. People have to want to do it or they won't do it.
Yeah, and so I have a question because I've heard this one so many times about math. What do you feel about the whole math thing? If math is being a barrier to these young kids to get them, really involved in STEM, like what advice do you have to parents out there who are struggling with that?
Amanda, you want to take a shot?
Yeah, well, with our kids, the biggest thing I've found to be helpful is if I don't know it, find somebody who does. People think the misnomer of, homeschooling is just, the kids are locked in a room and, all day long until they finish their work. Now, homeschooling is, going out into the community and, the world basically becomes your schoolhouse. And so if I don't know a subject, I find, a tutor that knows the subject. And, for example, with math, we found this amazing tutor who's African-American. He's a graduate of Princeton, pre-med, and he's been tutoring the boys for about a year and a half now. He tutored Spencer, but Spencer's in college right now, and he's tutoring Elijah. And another thing is Khan Academy. Khan Academy is free. You can bring it up on your laptop, bring it up on your desktop, bring it up on your telephone. And they've got some great tutorials in there from, elementary school math all the way to college level math. So I don't think that math should be a deal breaker for any kid. And a lot of the programs now, like Elijah was saying that he teaches, really are, a lot of them to help kids get started are just point and click. And so a lot of the young kids, you really don't need any math skills to do that. You just need the drive and the desire to, want to do it. But as far as math, right now in this day and age, it shouldn't be, as I said, a deal breaker for anybody because, there's so many things so many programs online that can help you. If you can't afford a tutor, Khan Academy is free 24 hours a day.
The other thing, though, is that I think it's really important to say that there's no substitute for hard work. And if kids don't, learn that early, it's hard to teach them that later. So, we've always tried to teach them that, anything worth doing is worth working hard to get proficiency and mastery of. So, they struggle with math just like everybody else, but they just keep plugging away and working at it, and they finally get it. And, some people are just gifted at math. Unfortunately, I'm not, and I think a lot of people, struggle. But if you have that work ethic and realize that, this is your future you're building, this is an investment in yourself, then they will know that that it's worth it, and that they can just get through that. And then you have to have the fun. You have to give them the things that they want to do as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely struggled in math when I was younger. Math was not, it wasn't a natural skill set for me. And it wasn't until, I didn't have to, learn from, one particular way. And I really learned that I was a visual learner. And I really was good at geometry. And so I kind of figured out, and I was really good at word problems too, which meant that my logic was all there. It was just that I just wasn't super excited about the number crunching. But then, I had to go back and I had to go and make sure that I really had, down pat certain concepts, whether it was just basic multiplication or fractions or just, remembering what these different formulas were. And so, every time you sort of, just step back if you need to, and it's like there's nothing to be embarrassed about that. And once you get over, I think, that sort of confidence, that feeling of confidence, then it can be fun, and solving those problems really do become fun. So I want to ask another question. you mentioned Khan Academy, and then you said that maybe there were some tools out there that kids are using to learn to click to code. So what specific programs do you think are out there that are really beneficial to helping to teach kids learn how to code?
Well, some of the tools out there for like web design, things like that. There's Mozilla's Hackasaurus, which lets you reverse engineer web pages like the New York Times website, and you can substitute their images and stories with things of your own. And other programs include Kodu by Microsoft, which is for developing 3D video games, which can also be played on Xbox. And Game Maker, making 2D platform games for iOS and Android, as well as App Inventor and Appery.io, which are both web-based mobile application software.
Okay. And for those apps, what do you feel like the learning curve is for those? Is it something that you can pick up easily? Did you have to struggle with it?
Yeah. All of the programs I just listed are things you can pick up and get started with within 5 minutes. And there are plenty of resources online that you can look at, as well as tutorials to make video games you don't know where to get started.
I don't believe you, Elijah. I think that there are some parents out there who are going to have to go and try that out and prove you right, because
those are great to get started with. But honestly, if they really want to be seriously into it, they're going to have to go further than that. And there are other programs, Corona SDK. Is a lot harder, but probably a lot more powerful. I already talked about the 3D engine, Unreal Tournament, which has a game editor built in, and those you can really learn a lot from. And so, but the ones that Elijah mentioned are good to get started. But I really think that people need to be willing to do the heavy lifting and do the hard work and really, learn how to, like you were saying, 3D Max, pretty hard program, right? 3D Studio or Maya. These are really tough programs to learn, but, people are doing it and they're making a good living. And, I think that, if people realize, like what I think Elijah said, you don't have to be just a consumer, you can be a content creator. So it is going to take some hard work.
Yeah, no, I actually agree. I agree 100% with you and Elijah. I've seen my daughter pick up. She taught me how to play Minecraft, and she had been watching videos on YouTube to learn how to build all these different kinds of switches and things with redstone. And this is just a game. It's sort of somewhat similar to sort of the Unreal style environment, where it's a 3D environment, interactive, where the kids can actually build houses and structures, and everything is based on the basic structure of a block. So it's like digital Legos, but with infinite possibilities, because, you run out of Legos. And I'm telling you, I watched her play this game, and it just blew my mind. And so she started teaching me how to play it, and I started playing it more. And, we just started building different things, and we'd help each other build stuff. And I'm thinking, like, you know what? That might be my next foray into entrepreneurship, because I think we need to make some books or something and make some money off of this. What do y'all think?
Sure. One of the things is we found that on some of the servers for Minecraft, because our daughter plays Minecraft quite a lot, that, inevitably people come on and they start, using bad language. And so you really have to monitor those things. And there are some people running private servers, especially homeschoolers, who, so you can, kind of have some trust that, that somebody's not going to come in and really, be obnoxious.
Yes, I agree. That is important. And we have a private server for Trinity just for that purpose. So I think, it's really good to have a network of parents, reach out, find other parents who are involved, sort of support each other. Just do whatever you can to find that kind of network, because it's going to help to avoid a lot of those pitfalls that you face as your kids are getting exposed to different things and they're being influenced by things. Sort of, children are they're just sponges, and stuff it comes up out of the woodworks, right? We got Snapchat, we got all sorts of other different things popping up. It's going to be a new thing every day. So it's just really important to stay engaged.
Yes, you really do. My Rebecca's into Minecraft as well, and since she's been learning coding languages, she came to me the other day and she's like, "Mom, did you know Minecraft was built on JavaScript, and if you do this, you can change this?" And I'm like, "Okay, go on, honey, just go do it and then come show Mama." So since she's learned JavaScript, she's realized that, oh, this is done in JavaScript, and I can do this and change all of this, and, and she's off to the races.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that is really wonderful because, they're able to make the connection between the products that they're using and the technology that creates those products. And then they can envision themselves creating, whether it's the product itself or adding on to the product, because, software is all open source. So, these young folks can get in there, they can get into GitHub, and they can look at some source code, and you just be surprised. Like, I just always tell parents, don't underestimate what your child is capable of doing, because their brains are so malleable. They can do far more than we generally give them credit for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I know that like Scott and Amanda, or Scott, you were into technology already. I don't know if your wife was as well, but were there any signs that your kids were interested in coding? Was there anything that kind of did you see a light bulb go off one day and you say, "Oh yeah, he's really interested in this," or did they watch you and start asking a lot of questions, and that's when you knew they were interested? How did that process occur?
Well, I think they were watching me and just naturally wanting to do it. And we never asked our kids much what they wanted to do. We pretty much told them, "Hey, here's what we're going to do today," So they were just like, "Oh, cool." And so, it was never, that we worried about whether they were interested. We were doing it, and it's everything we do seems interesting to us. So, we were sitting down working on the computer, and I just explained to them, what I'm doing, how it works. And, we try to find programs that were at a level that they could do until, they were old enough to do something more. So, you just start them early and you just get them involved early. And then I think that the interest builds there.
Gotcha. What about you, Will? Was there any? Did your kid exhibit any type of signs that she was interested in coding?
Well, I realized that she really was interested when she made me the animated video for my birthday, but she's always been around it. I, play around a bit. Most of my friends are into computers, so, if we go to visit certain friends, they have, I have one friend that has just a room full of computers. And so she's around it. So it was, it's kind of natural for her to pick it up.
Excellent.
Yeah, so when we were starting to animate, we needed to have a computer that could handle the programs, like for rendering in 3D. So we ended up having to build a machine, and we just built it out of parts we were able to find off Craigslist, and you know, it was fun. They liked it.
That's very, you know, some good advice there for people who are, you know, because not everyone can afford a high-end computer, but looking on Craigslist, getting parts, putting together the parts yourself is definitely a great way, an economical way of building your own computer. Building your own computer is great as well, just so that you know exactly the components that you're putting together in order to build this. Because a lot of people, they think that they almost think that it's magic, right? And and they're not aware of that these are just electrical, you know, moving and somewhat mechanical parts that are, you know, put together in a fashion in order to create this computer. And you know, just even having a hands-on experience to show your kid that, hey, this is the processor, hey, this is the memory, this is what this does, and this is the motherboard, and these are the hard drives, and this is, I think that's an excellent way. And hands-on is also fun because they want to mess with and tinker with things anyhow. So that just gives them more of a reason. So excellent. So I got a last question here. And we always talk about, you know, here at Blacks in Technology, we always talk about community, and it's one of, you know, it's really our foundation. We have, like I said, approaching 1,100 members nationwide, and we get together in a community fashion. There's, you know, live chat there. There's, you know, forums where people can ask questions, you know, get questions answered. There's you know, our podcast where we talk to other African Americans in technology about, you know, what they are doing in technology, some of the wonderful things. But we've always had a hard time getting, you know, beginners or people that are new to technology to the site, because they come to the site and they'll see, you know, some of the forum talks, and they can be pretty high level. And we're trying to change that. We're in the process of changing that right now. But how can an organization like Blacks in Technology, a community like Blacks in Technology, help in supporting parents and the kids?
Well, that's tough, you know, because, you know, it's so hard. It's hard enough to raise your own kids, you know, but I would love to see other parents, you know, really get involved with their kids, you know, be willing to give up some of the things that they think they need. You know, we've never owned a new car, you know, we invest in our kids, you know, it's just important to spend time together. We spend a lot of time together, and, you know, I think that involvement of the parents and realize what really is important is education, not things. I think that's one of the keys.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anyone else want to?
It is. It's spending the time. Even, I mean, for me as an adult, some of the best memories I have are just me and my parents just being together, just doing things.
Yeah.
It's going to stick with them.
Yeah.
You can't raise your kid, do as I say, not as I do. If you want them to be a certain way and emulate certain behavior, you have to exhibit that in front of them.
That's so true. And you know, and I didn't realize this before, you know, but when you see a great kid, you can bet they have great parents. You know, I mean, really, the apple does not fall far from the tree.
No,
usually.
It does not.
Excellent. That's some great, inspiring, and excellent advice for the parents out there. And I hope everybody who listened into the podcast definitely, you know, wrote down some of the stuff that you guys shared with us, and we definitely appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing your experiences and sharing some of your advice.
Yeah, I concur. Definitely thank you guys so much. This has been very enlightening, and I really hope people benefited from this. And I want to also just make an announcement because, you know, we've started this discussion, and honestly I've never heard of anyone doing sessions about parents and raising their kids in STEM, and especially not African-American parents. You know, I hear a lot about, oh, the parents aren't doing their job, but how many conversations have I had where someone said, hey, we're going to try and help. We're going to give some resources. We're going to share information. And I really think that it is a village that raises a child. And so if there's a child out there who's struggling or facing challenges, it is not our job to look at that child and say, well, your parents screwed up and you're on your own. No, we have to help. And we don't only help the child, but we also help the parent, because that's what communities do. And so with that, I want to announce a new category that we've introduced in the blacksintechnology.net community. So if you go to the website, there's a link that says forum. If you click into that forum, there's a new category called Parents Corner. And that category was created to encourage parents to come and ask questions. So whether you're in New York City or California or Hawaii or Alaska or Berlin or Nairobi and you're a parent and you're trying to get your kid involved in STEM and trying to support them, we really wanted to create a place where parents can support each other better. So I'll be in that community, and I invite you all on this call to register and join and share more there, because I think this is just really the beginning of a very large conversation that's going to go spark for a long time, and it's going to make a great impact.
Definitely.
You.
So, yeah, I definitely want to thank you, Scott, you, Amanda, Elijah, and Wilda. And sorry Kai couldn't be on. Hopefully we can get him on another episode. But definitely want to thank you, parents, and Elijah for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.